Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Reiki Lifestyle Podcast. We are here with Walter Lübeck is our guest today. Walter, we have a lot of just audio only listeners, so if you just want to say hi real quick.
Hi, and thank you for listening. I'm Walter Lübeck, and I'm so happy to be here and share this wonderful time with Robyn and with Colleen.
Yes, we are happy as well. Also here with Colleen.
Hello, and I'm excited to reconnect with Walter. Gosh, I think I met you for the first time maybe in 2004, so a long time ago. So just really great to be in touch.
Colleen, was that the story that you tell about the retreat?
Yes.
Okay, nice. You'll have to retell that story.
Okay.
I've heard that story a few times, Walter.
Yeah, I guess so. It was just a great time, a very interesting time, filled with miracles and meetings with wonderful people.
Yeah, well, the story we'll get into it a little bit later, but was also a really profound experience for me and gave me clear direction on why I was heading into my Reiki path. And you held a ceremony with a trance dance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
why don't you just go ahead and tell it? It's fine. We can do the introductions in a minute because it's flowing that way. So just go for it.
Please do. Please do.
So I was actually pretty new, feeling a little bit intimidated by meeting you and some of the international people who came. I know it's always funny when you think it's like, no, not me. But anyway, I was a little bit shy with it all. And you held a ceremony, a shamanic ceremony with the trance dance. And I actually had not done that before, even though I had been practicing shamanism too. It wasn't one of the practices I had learned or experienced. And man, you just did the thing on the forehead, and the trees were dancing and the answers were there. And I remember just being in this place of, why am I so called to this work with Reiki? Like, what is this? And because I think in 2004, I had only had my attunements for 4 years. So, but I had been in shamanic training for 3 years prior to that. So for 7 years by that time. But it really clarified my path for me, why I was on this path, and how I would share it in the world. Very, very profound. Yeah.
Wasn't there something like a specific, I forget now, but a specific kind of message that came through during that, Colleen?
Well, at the time, I had been making my living as a fiber artist. So with yarns and fibers, and for 15 years, for a long time. And so starting with my Reiki business and, knowing that I was going to be moving into it way more professionally, I was like, well, what can I offer with this? And so initially, so much of it showed up as also how to work with Reiki, with crafts, with arts, with touching and design and color and things like that. And so it brought in this whole wave of that creativity, and has always been a part of my ceremonies, creating the beauty in the ceremonies, and then also, of course, different projects, because of course I still am creative and working with different creativities. So anyway, it also brought that in. So
yeah.
Wow.
Go ahead, Walter.
It was really an enchanted time. I remember that, and I brought sometimes some of my advanced students with me from Germany, and we did these rituals together, and I always was amazed how dedicated the people were who came to the festivals, and how strong the energy was building up.
It was a powerful event and ceremony, and the power that was there in the circle was amazing. And of course, with you facilitating it and, really working with that energy for it all, it was memorable for me, to say the least. Yeah, really impactful.
I'm happy that it supported you.
Yeah, right. You're like, oh yeah.
Well, it's, besides doing my spiritual job, I'm useless mostly. So if I try to fix something with a hammer or something, it's no good idea, because you will have lots of problems later which you didn't have before. I cannot repair cars like other guys do, and I'm not very good with gardening work and these kind of things. So what I can do is the spiritual stuff. So I have to focus on that, and this of course has some consequences, like people who train for football, for example, or for basketball. They develop a kind of professional approach and some skills and so on, because they are very focused on something. And well, in my case, I'm useless for anything else, so I have to develop these kind of skills.
I like that. Gives us all permission. Okay. All right. It's okay that I can't repair a car or whatever. So I'm focused
Oh, you
on.
can?
But I
Oh
can't do
gosh.
that
No,
spiritual
I
stuff.
can't. No, I
No,
have a
no.
mechanic that I
Hmm.
trust. That's where my car goes. Well, so
You know-
Walter, go ahead.
No, please.
You were attuned to Reiki in 1987, correct?
Yes, that was first degree, 1988, second degree, and then I took about 1.5 years of master training and was initiated as Usui master teacher, third degree, in I guess it was October or September of 89, by Master Brigitte Muller, who was a student of Furumoto. And then later I did another master training in Jikiden Reiki with Chioko Yamaguchi, and later when she was passed, with her son Tadao. And that was, I think, around 2000, 2001 or so.
Well, so tell us a little bit about your journey with Reiki, and then Rainbow Reiki, all of your spiritual training, because as Colleen said earlier, you're also trained in shamanism. So kind of tell us about your story with it all, and also what called you to Reiki in the first place. Like how did that whole process start?
Oh, yes, I would love to. But I need to clarify something.
Yeah.
I never had a training in shamanism in this life.
Oh, okay.
Nothing. Most of what I do, let's say about 99%, I remember from former lives.
Interesting.
So I teach, when I teach Rainbow Reiki, I teach lots of stuff which I have invented. So it's signature techniques. And I remembered it. I remembered it from times when I was living in Lemuria about 12,000, 13,000, 15,000 years ago. And in this society, they were using the energy Reiki because it was always all over. But of course, they did not use the approach of Usui. They use their own approach. And this is why I have a lot of more symbols and mantras and mudras and techniques and lots of stuff, which mostly people who do Usui Reiki have no idea of. And just to make that very clear in the beginning, I'm very happy that there are lots and lots and lots of Reiki master teachers out there and do what they do. And I know that most of them really are dedicated to what they are doing. So I'm very happy that this is so. Why? You see, I'm doing a very sophisticated method or system of using the energy Reiki, and this is a part of the Reiki movement today. And the movement is the thing which we all belong to. And without that movement, Rainbow Reiki would not be there. So for me, it is like having the wonderful opportunity to teach people who have the opportunity to understand the basics and to learn the basics and practice the basics, to teach much more. So from the beginning on, I was always looking for being very effective, serving the people coming to me as a spiritual healer, but also as a teacher, so that they could learn how to serve better. For me, my Reiki practice is to serve in the best possible way for the spiritual path, but also for, well, concrete healing, like Usui did. I think this person gave us, with his biography, great ideas about what to do with Reiki. So I started in 87, and I was going into that class without having any idea that there was something like, let's say, economic spiritual classes, where you could go and pay your fee, and then you get initiated, you get trained, and you have a group of people there with whom you exchange treatments and so on. I did not know about that. I was growing up with angels. I saw my first angel when I was 2.5 years old. I was looking up from playing in the sandbox, and there was this big angel looking at me, and I looked back and thought, what is that? You know, because I never had seen something like that. But about when I was a year old, I was hardly able to stand and to walk on my own, but I was aware of the dead dogs of my family who were trailing after the living dog. And so I hold the door open to let all the dogs in. And my mom said, what are you doing? I said, well, there are many other dogs who want to come in. She said, what? There is just one dog. What are you telling me? You know, but I was seeing all these other dogs. So I very early had spiritual experiences, and the angels, they took care for me. So I had, in a way, I had a split life. I had two lives. So one life was, well, I was a kid, I was a teenager, I was playing, I had love affairs, I was a vocalist and a drummer in a rock and roll band, and later in hard rock bands. And I was going out, having fun, doing party. And on the other hand, I was driving to nearby places. I lived on the countryside in the Lüneburger Heide, a place in northern Germany, which with lots of nature, to megalith sites and to very old trees where the angels were guiding me. But I didn't talk about this to anyone because I did not know what should I say. You know, at that time, you didn't have spiritual books around. You didn't have books about angels and everything. It wasn't there. You could be happy if you found a book about astrology. So at that time, I thought I might be a little bit weird, and better I don't talk about that. My parents, they were open to spiritual things, but on another level. My pa, he survived Second World War only because he was clairvoyant. So he was in charge for a large army unit of more than 1,000 soldiers. And it was often that he was moving the soldiers to a place where it was safe. And the place where he was ordered to move the people was completely destroyed. And he had several of these clairvoyance experiences. So he knew about that. He was fond of astrology, and he had some experiences with hypnosis and these kind of things, but it wasn't something big for him. It was just, it's there, I did it, that's it. And so when he died, I was 11 years old, and I had lots of opportunities to do what I wanted to do. And so I had these two lives, and I was growing up, then going to the high school and going to college. And when I was in the industry as one of three partners, bringing up a business which we owned together, I was more and more reading about spiritual things. And then I got ill, and I was the practice of a naturopathic doctor who was recommended to me. And this guy and his wife, they were taking care for me very well. They were talking with me, discussing things and so on, beside doing their naturopathic therapies. And one day I was seeing this certificate on the wall. It says that the naturopathic doctor was a first-degree Reiki initiator. And I thought, what the heck is this? You know. So I asked the person, and he told me, I will not say anything about this, but in, I think it was 2 weeks, there is a class here about that. You book that class, you go there, and I won't tell you, you will see then. I trusted the naturopathic doctor, and I had absolutely no idea what I was getting in. So a Friday evening, I was arriving there, and there were a lot of interesting people who just have discovered a week before that they were in fact a pink penguin and a brown bear, and others, they were doing the shoes themselves because industrialized manufactured shoes had bad energy. And another one was with the shaman of the wind, and whenever the shaman of the wind came into a room, then lots of wind was going on and so on. So these people, they were interesting. I never had met these kind of people. And I thought, well, maybe I'm not that exotic as I thought I am. And they told me about the Kundalini rising up and down and archangels coming and hugging them. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And well, they do not seem to be dangerous, you know. So they were just a friendly bunch of people. And I was initiated. I didn't feel much. But when I was driving Monday morning after the class, a 1-hour drive to my office and the manufacturing building, that was the first time when I had my hands on the steering wheel of the car for a longer period of time at the same place. And boy, they got hot. And it was tingling all over my arms, up to my shoulders. And I thought, what is this? I never have had this. And whenever I placed my hands somewhere, again, it was this kind of sensation. And I thought maybe I'm ill or so, but then I started to treat the cats at home, my partner, and then friends, and then friends of friends, and friends of friends of friends. And then there were coming people, I had no idea where they're coming from. And most of them got a healing. They got better in a way or another. And so when I was coming home at 7 p.m. at night, I hastily did eat some food, and then I was treating up to midnight or something. And at that time, I didn't dare to take some money. It's not that I wasn't inexperienced with money. I was investing in the stock exchange on my own since the age of 15, and I was working in the industry and so on. But I felt bad with taking money for that. But then I had some interesting experience. For example, an elderly lady who I treated for free, and treatment means she got green tea, she got cookies, she got 2 or 3 hours treatment and card reading and so on for free. And then she told me, yeah, for the next weeks, she could not come. I said, why that? You need that. You're not healthy. And she said, there are I think it was 3 grandchildren, and I invited them to come with me to Spain, and we will have a holiday there in Spain for, I don't know, 3 weeks or something. And then when she was gone, I thought, you treat her for free because you think she is poor? She invites 3 grandchildren for 3 weeks to Spain? What the heck are you doing? So from that moment on, I started to charge. And I was, even from the beginning on, it was very important for me to help the people. So I wasn't in the feel-good Reiki community. Feel-good Reiki means for me, you put your hands on the body and you feel great, and that's it. So I respect that. If people want that, that's wonderful, because, well, I'm happy if they don't have anything else. And to me, mostly people came who had severe health issues. So I tried to help them. And often I could, and sometimes I couldn't. Or sometimes I was helping them to get better, but it wasn't healed. And then I thought, why does Reiki not work that well with this person like with that person? And when I asked my Reiki master at that time, then I got something like, yeah, that's karma, or it's not meant to be healed, and so on. I thought, come on, if I go to a dentist and the dentist would tell me, you're not meant to have a better tooth, so I won't drill out that cavity and so on, I would think I go to another dentist, because this is not what I want to hear. I want him to fix my tooth. So I thought, is this true with the karma, and it's not meant to be healed, and so on? So I was asking homeopathic doctors, people who professionally did traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and they all told me, see, if they are not meant to be healed, you will see. Otherwise, you just try. And if the creator does not want them to be healed, you will not heal them. Otherwise, just go on, because you won't know. You will not know for sure. Just treat them and see how far you come. So I thought, what could I do better? I combined then Reiki with the chakra teachings. I combined Reiki with acupressure, crystal healing, aroma healing, the aroma oils, aromatherapy. I combined it with massage. I combined it with special yoga positions and breath work. And of course, with calling in angels, because this is something I was very experienced with in my own ways since childhood, because I was always with the angels. And I found out that if I would combine certain things with Reiki, it worked better. And after a while, I came to the conclusion that often the problem is not that Reiki cannot heal it, that Reiki was not pulled in instead. So what I learned in the class was Reiki is being pulled in by the recipient. I got that information, but for the first several months, I did not really understand that. So then later, I realized, yes, someone can be severely ill and the body will not pull in Reiki like it could and should. Because I understood more about psychosomatic medicine. I understood about the things going on in the subconscious mind, where people are convinced that it's a good idea to have that illness because they get a lot of favors, that people around them take better care of them, they don't have to go to work, they get money for staying at home, and so on and so on. And this is mostly not consciously, it is subconsciously. So I developed methods, or I just asked people like acupuncturists and so on, what do you do if you stick a needle in and it doesn't work like it should? And then they told me, and then I got ideas from a great guy. He came from I think from the Philippines. He was a healer, he did with a rusty small knife, he did surgery. So he was slicing off your belly and removing some stuff and putting this in a vessel and flush it down the toilet. And then he was fixing again the cut so that you can't see anything. But I was looking into my open belly. I was looking into my open joints when he was cutting things. And then he was putting the skin together and everything was fixed. And I asked him, what do you do if someone comes here with cancer? Do you heal the person and then the person gets out and is healed? And he laughed and said, no, such a person would have to travel with me for many months. She needs lots of healings. They need to change the diet. They need to change the ways of living, the ways of thinking. They need to sleep better, drink more water, and so on and so on. And besides this, I do my kind of energy work for them. And then there is a bigger chance that they get healed. And I understood that this was a professional. So I tried to learn as much as I could, because he was traveling around the world, healing lots of people, had thousands and thousands of students and clients he had healed. That thought, this is a professional. And even if my master was very serious, at that time, I did not know anybody in the Reiki community. And mind you, we did not have any internet. And the kids today, well, the grown-up kids, they cannot imagine not having a mobile phone, not having internet, not having a PlayStation and these kind of things. But there were times where my family was one of 5 in the whole village who had a telephone. and it wasn't a mobile phone. So there were times when I wanted to speak to a friend, I was driving with my bicycle about 5 kilometers to meet that friend instead of calling them, you know. So there were these strange times. So I learned from this guy from the Philippines and from others, and more I started to take my memories serious. Before I thought they were daydreams. I had a very dynamic fantasy because I had all these, when I was, you know, looking into the air, there were all these memories about tropical landscapes and about wars where people were flying through the air, and also about living in picturesque little villages where the houses were made out of plants and where there were lots of wonderful smelling blossoms and so on. And you were riding with dolphins and these kind of things. But I thought this is just weird fantasy at that time. But by using Reiki so much, I treated so many people and doing research, I got to know more and more that what I had in my mind, these pictures, these movies, they were just memories. I did not invent them, they were memories because they all were fitting together. It was not that you had a memory here and a memory then, they were contradicting. No, they were supporting each other. So I was more aware of that. I took that more serious. And when I was starting to teach Reiki, I integrated what had worked for me and my clients because I thought, I'm no good teacher if I would not pass on everything I know to my students. They came here to learn to heal, so I'm the teacher and I need to give them the best I could. So I did. But that did not make me much friends in the professional Reiki community. So especially when I brought out my books, I had a lot of nasty letters which came to me. At that time, we wrote letters, you know, sometimes written by hand. There was no email. And I learned to live with that. But I thought something, what people tell me about Reiki, like what I learned in the classes which I took, was wrong because they said if you do Reiki, you automatically are in your heart and you are loving and you are filled with gratitude. And I thought, this is not what I experience. Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. So I could also not experience that a Reiki master was spiritually more developed than someone without Reiki or with a first degree. So I thought, when I work as a Reiki master, I don't want to be separated in the breaks, you know. I want to be with the people because I'm like them. So I just have learned something. I learned some skills, but I'm in no way better than them. So I taught what I knew what work, and I got, the more I was trying my best to teach them how to heal themselves and others, I got more and more detailed memories, and I started to write this down. And the first version of my book, Rainbow Reiki, contained lots of my memories, but the publishing house didn't want them at that time. They said, this is not, you will not be taken serious. We don't want that. So I was rewriting the book. And so at the moment I'm preparing a book about my memories of Lemuria, which I hopefully will have ready about summer this year. And then I will publish this in German and English and in Spanish. And it will contain all that stuff and much more than what I had at that time in the midst of the 90s. But at the midst of the 90s, I was also getting out of this international Reiki organization because they told me that I did the wrong thing. And the person who were writing to me told me that they did not know what I do because they never met me. They never were in my classes and they never met some of my students, but what I do was wrong. And I had to come to them to be re-educated. So I thought, this is not what I want to do. You know, I'm not part of a church or something. So I stepped out. So everybody could do what they would please them. And I was then using the name Rainbow Reiki for what I did, because I realized that what I was doing was in many ways, well, I wouldn't say different, I would say more of what was going on in the Reiki community. So what I was aware of at that moment is that some of the Reiki masters already started to experiment, for example, with Reiki and crystals and Reiki and breath work. And I was happy because I experienced so often that just putting a clear quartz under your hands and having the intention when inhaling that you pull the energy of the Reiki out of the hands of the practitioner lying on your body would increase the effect so much. The thought, if it helps people to heal, why shouldn't I do that? And then I heard, well, this is not traditional. And working with the chakra is not traditional. So I thought, why must it be traditional? What's the problem with that? And then, how do they know it's not traditional? Because I was told at that time, we have no idea what Uzui did because everybody died during the Second World War. And we have no idea what's going on in Japan, which later I understood was a lie. But at that time, I had no other sources. But I thought, I will give the best to my students, what I know, because otherwise I could not look into the mirror every morning when I was doing the razors thing, you know. I never liked to use the razor. And I tried the electric ones and the mechanical ones, and I never got to like that. But that's another story. You know, when it was the end of the 90s, I had gathered so much experience with my memories, with symbols and other techniques and so on, that I started to integrate that after close to 10 years of trying out, of making sure that it really works and it wasn't just a, you know, a weird idea in my head. Then I started to pass this on to my students. And because it just didn't fit to first and second degree, I just was setting up more classes, which very fast filled with content. And at that time, I also was integrating shamanism into Reiki, because my research at that time, I was doing a lot of research about that, about where Reiki came from and what was the history of Reiki before Uzui. Because I said to myself, the energy Reiki and the Reiki healing system are two different things. The energy Reiki was there well before Uzui, because it is, well, it's like water in the nature, or it's like the trees. It's not something which Uzui has invented. But Uzui did a genius thing. He was founding a school where you could easily learn to deal with Reiki, and in a very safe way for everybody. It's easy to learn, and you could expand it like he did. He wrote a book about how to use Reiki, like his student Hayashi did. And there you find massage and breath work and Qigong and everything. So he absolutely was a genius, and I admire Uzui and I admire Hayashi. And I thought there must be a history of Reiki, the energy, before Uzui. And I found out a lot in books which had nothing to do with esoteric content, but there were historians. They were anthropologists. I hope this is the right word in English. And they were writing, for example, about ancient China, and that 2,500 years before our times, and even before that, there were the so-called Wu shamans in China. And the Wu shamans were very respected healers and advisors to the king and to the dukes and counts and so on. And these people had a face mask. And on that face mask was the kanji Reiki, which in China, they name Ling Chi. The same kanji, but they don't say Reiki, they say Ling Chi. Then the Chinese philosopher Meng Tse or Mencius, he mentioned 500 before New Era in one of his books that the young students should not do so much magical stuff. They should gather Ling Chi in their body. And then there were writings from Qigong people. And also I found some special texts written for people who want to apply to be a doctor of something in university. Don't know how you call that. And they wrote about Qi. And there I found also Reiki or Ling Chi, and it had nothing to do with a new age movement of Reiki practitioners and so on. It was just academic stuff which came from a completely different perspective. They even did not know that there was a Reiki movement. So I was studying this, and I found out that these Wu shamans were famous for the healing powers. And how did they get the healing powers? Well, in springtime, around Easter time, they were walking out in nature to one of the many, many holy mountains of China, climbing that mountain, sitting there close to a well, meditating 3 weeks and did not eat. And after this, they had healing hands. Wow, I thought this story I already know. This is what Usui did. So Usui did what these Chinese Wu shamans did. And I did more research about the Reiki kanji. So what does the Reiki kanji mean exactly? And you know, I'm doing martial arts since the age of 8. I did karate, judo, and aikido, and hapkido, and tai chi chuan, and different kung fu styles, and so on. So I got to know a lot of pros in that area. And when you get to know professionals in martial arts from Asia, they all know a lot about healing. That goes always together. You can't divide that in their understanding. So I used my contacts at the end of the 90s and asked friends if I would travel to Hong Kong. Would there be some people who would know about Ling Chi? And they said, well, might be. We can give you some address and names. So when I was traveling Hong Kong, I met with Qigong masters, advanced Qigong masters, and they told me, oh, of course we know Ling Chi. Whenever you are in higher degrees of Qigong, you learn about Ling Chi. Ling Chi is a quarter master of Shen Qi. So Shen Qi is divine energy, and Ling Chi is inviting divine energy. And they helped me to understand what this Ling Chi is exactly. And that was something like the missing link, you know, in anthropology. It was a missing link in the Reiki movement, because they told you Reiki is universal life energy, but what exactly does it mean? Is there any definition about that? No, there is not. So it's just a word. So they say Reiki always does good and never fails. Well, yes and no. Yes, I have never, ever experienced that you could harm someone directly with Reiki. Never, ever. It's a very benevolent energy. On the other hand, I've seen people treating another person just the head area and did no grounding, and they got into a psychotic state. Not because of Reiki, but because of an overload of energy which was set free from the muscles here, and there was no grounding to get rid of that. So it wasn't an overflow of Reiki. It was just that Reiki was, like it should do, setting free a lot of stored energy, and the stored energy could not get out of the system. So if they would have treated the feet, everything would have been fine. So I know that you need to understand something about how to treat with Reiki. And this is exactly what Usui and Hayashi taught in their books. So they did not say, you just place your hands somewhere on the body, Reiki will do all the same. They did not say that. They said, if there is this condition, treat there. If there is that condition, treat there. And then you have the breathing exercises, and you have the Qigong if you want to be able to give more Reiki, and you should do meditation every day, and so on and so on. So they had very specific ideas how to treat what. They did not say, place your hands somewhere and Reiki will go wherever it is needed. They did not claim that. Not in the books they wrote. But I heard that all over the place. And it wasn't what I experienced. What I experienced was, if I treated a reflex zone, then of course Reiki was going to another part of the body. Like if I would do reflex zone massage or place a crystal there, of course it would go through the body. But that does not mean that wherever you place your hands, the energy Reiki will be drawn wherever it's needed. This was not my experience, and Hayashi and Uzui did never claim that. So I learned about the energy Reiki, what it is. And that was blowing my mind. It's so simple in a way. And on the other hand, it's wow. So Reiki is neither yin nor it is yang. As we know, it's neutral. But where is it? There is this yin-yang symbol. And the Chinese state that whatever there is in this world, you will find in that symbol. So if Reiki is not yin and it is not yang, where is it? Well, the Qigong master told me it's everywhere where yin borders yang or yang borders yin. Because the energy Reiki makes sure that yang is changing into yin and yin is changing into yang in the right way according to divine order. And that was helping me to understand that this is why if you gather more Reiki, you invite Shen Qi, you invite the divine Qi, because Reiki makes things, if you accept that, yin turn into yang, yang transform into yin according to divine order. The more you allow that to happen, well, the more you are open to get in touch with divine, quite naturally. So this was really something which I love to understand. And then I also met Ajava Petta in the end of the 90s who did research about Reiki. And I met the Yamaguchis who did a lot of research about Reiki and had their own Reiki style. And this helped me also to understand more about the Japanese background of Reiki, but I was always focused on how to help better with Reiki. Well, then I need to mention something exotic, let's say. You know, when I was at the beginning of the 90s, I got enlightened and spiritually realized. The problem with this is that many people think that if you get enlightened and spiritually realized, you are a kind of Superman or Supergirl. So you always smile, you're always happy, you are always rich, everybody loves you, you can heal everything at once, you look happy, you never grow old, and so on and so on. Forget it. It's plainly that enlightenment means, in my terminology, there are many different terminologies, that you perceive parts of the world or much more of the world from a divine point of view. And that does not necessarily mean that you love what you are aware of or that you even could stand what you are aware of. It just means you have that perspective. So if you haven't had a spiritual teacher before, you definitely need one when you get enlightened, because otherwise you will have problems. So being spiritually realized means that you learn to love what is, not more and not less. But learning to love what is in my understanding, what people are supposed to learn here. On the other hand, you become unbearable for people who are not spiritually realized. You are useless, absolutely useless, because from your perspective, when you allow yourself to be there, well, you have had lots of lives, you will have lots of lives, whether you do it now, whether you do it in the future, whether you have done it in the past, it doesn't matter. Tell this to your spouse. Tell this to your neighbors or your friends. They will, afterwards, they strangle you, you know, and they are right. So living spiritually realized means you have to do a, how do you call that when a ballet dancer spreads legs and goes down like this on the ground? Is it spagat?
Splits?
Splits, exactly, yeah. You have to do kind of split, because on the one hand, you know that all these kind of things are not really a drama. On the other hand, it is a part of getting spiritually realized that you understand the necessity of that drama and that you embrace it like everything else. So things became complicated for me, mostly emotionally, in the beginning of the 90s. This was also parallel to when more of my memories of former lives in Lemuria, especially in Lemuria, but not only, were getting into my conscious mind. And I learned later, after a lot of challenges, to use the state of mind to develop more energy work. So today, I have several schools which I have developed and more than 200 class formats, which I teach, not all within 1 year, but over a period of 3 or 4 years, I teach them all. So there is a Rainbow Reiki school with about 20 plus classes. There is a Lemurian Tantra school. There is a 3 Rays meditation school. And there is a White Feather Shamanic school. I have taught teachers in all these schools and thousands of students. And I could only do this because when I allow me to be in the spiritually realized zone, I can now get things easily down from former lifetimes, from parallel lives, from spiritual guides. And so I have to just sit down and write a manual instead of doing research for half a year about that manual. I just sit down and write it. Because when I feel that it's important, I can do it because there is the right time to do it. And I think that everybody has had these kind of experiences. When you just allow yourself to feel that something is right, and then you do it, you allow yourself to do it, it's like that. I think everybody knows that, but most people don't take it serious. Like enlightenment and spiritual realization. Being in that state, I recognize in everybody that they have these moments all over the time. They just don't take it serious. So it's like, I heard this story. I think it was Washington, D.C. There was this world famous violinist. I forgot the name, but someone really, really, really famous, who had filled a big hall with thousands of people paying hundreds of dollars for just getting one ticket and listening to him playing his violin with an orchestra. And this guy made an experiment. He was going to a subway station, putting their hat in front of him and was playing the violin. And I think after 3 or 4 hours, there were half a dozen people who were listening, and he had about $30 in his head, and that's it. A world-class violinist, because the people just didn't recognize him. So they thought, yeah, well, So, and it's the same with enlightenment and spiritual realization. People have this all over the time. There is no exceptional gift or whatever necessary, like being Sai Baba or being Osho. We all have that, but most people just don't realize that they have it, and they don't take it serious. If they would take it serious, you would have a world population of enlightened and spiritually realized people. I'm sure about that. So I told this because this created a fundamental for me to develop all these classes in such a short time. I wrote lots of texts, plus audios, plus videos, teaching materials for teachers, and so on and so on, because I did not need much research. What I needed, and what I still need, is I need to have a talk with someone, to watch a movie, to look into a book, to get a crystallization point. And then this crystallization point, if I take it serious, does this, and the knowledge is there. The memory is there. I am open to what the angels have to say, and so on. Now, in the 2000s, when the both of us met, that was a kind of transition point, because at that time, I thought it's a good idea to integrate these memories. And I was putting more symbols and mantras in my teachings, and I was creating new classes and doing a lot of shamanic work. I did sweat lodges and trance dance and shamanic initiations and rituals and so on. But at that time, there was still something holding me back to, let's say, do something revolutionary with the Reiki energy. This was beginning in the midst of 2009. And from that moment on, there was another stage of not only Rainbow Reiki, but also the other schools, which I founded. And it started because I got very ill. When 2007 turned to 2008, I was getting very ill in many different ways. And there was no diagnosis. So I was ill, I had the symptoms, and neither a medical doctor nor a naturopathic doctor had any idea what I had. I knew the spiritual reason, which in a way was very simple, because some weeks before I got all these symptoms, I was giving a sweat lodge for a group of students, in fact, several sweat lodges. And in the sweat lodges, I asked the creator to help me to integrate all my potential, no matter what. A few weeks later, I got ill, very ill. I did not stop teaching because whenever I taught, I had all the energy needed. I was mostly free of symptoms. I was able to do healings and I was able to do teachings, but in between I was very ill. And from this moment on, started the most creative phase in my life. So since that moment until today, I created more than in the 20 years before, much more, and much better stuff. And when I got so ill and I didn't know whether I would die next week or not, I picked one of my chakra energy cards. You know, this oracle. You can get it also in the United States from the booksellers. Chakra energy card. I picked one card. What is the spiritual meaning of my illness? And it said, my life unfolds according to my vocation. Well, now, after several years, I could say, yes, absolutely. Because it helped me to get rid of a lot of blocks, which otherwise would have prevented me from allowing me to know certain things. So during this time, I wasn't only very creative, I met a lot of interesting people. I learned from them and with them. I was looking into things I would not have looked before because there was no need, everything was running. So what I think is so special in Rainbow Reiki is that it's constantly made better, that there is a constant development. And insofar, it is very traditional. You know, I did a lot of research about Usui and Hayashi. What I found out is, well, most people know that Usui only taught Reiki 4 years. From his moment on the Mount Kurama until his death by stroke. Within these 4 years, as far as we know, he did not teach always the same thing. He developed. In the beginning, he did not use symbols. Then he realized that people needed these kind of hand grips, and he integrated symbols. He integrated breath work and massage and what's not. In Usui Reiki, massage is a fundamental of the Reiki treatment. So Usui did not only treat with energy, he was doing massage plus energy work. We can read that. It's in the book Spirit of Reiki. I wrote this together with William Lee Rand and Ajava Peta. It's available in English. Everybody can read the book of Usui and the book of Hayashi. They're integrated in that book. So Usui always made his ways to deal with the energy Reiki better. Hayashi changed the ways too. So Hayashi did not teach like Usui did, and he was not healing like Usui did. He did it in different ways. Well, then Takada, who brought Reiki to the Western world, Usui Reiki, she changed a lot. Lots of. Not only the way how Reiki was taught, but also how to proceed with a whole body treatment and so on. Then the students, the master students of Takada, they changed things. So what is the traditional in Reiki, if there is any traditional? It is making things better. Initiation from person to person to person, starting with Usui. For me, it's also the principles, the 5 principles like carved in stone and the memorial stone close to Usui's grave. I adore these principles. They are wow, you know, you really can use them if you want to help yourself or want to help others. And then there is meditation. Meditation was so important for Usui that it's engraved on that memorial stone. You should sit down and do gasho meditation in the morning and the evening and recite the 5 principles. He did not write there, place your hands on the body. He wrote, meditate in the morning and the evening. Do gasho, recite the 5 principles. This is the healing for every illness. Well, okay, that's a Buddhistic understanding, but still, it's important for me. This is, in my understanding, traditional. It's not traditional to state you don't have to invent anything, because Usui invented a lot, Hayashi invented, Takata invented. So as long as the inventions help people, if they help to set up a new path to heal by using the Reiki energy, in my understanding, it's great. So let me stress out one thing which stands for many others in Rainbow Reiki. I think we all love the whole body treatment, isn't it? I think whole body treatment is great. But usually, if it's not just 5 days after the first Reiki 1 class, people in the evening, after they have had 8 hours of work, maybe 10 hours of work, they have prepared the dishes and were cleaning the dishes and then sitting with a spouse on the sofa, and they want to treat themselves. 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. That's normal because it's relaxing. You just doze away. It's not really practical for everyday life routine that you treat yourself and maybe your spouse and the kids and the dog and the cat with a whole body treatment, even if it would be great, because you don't have the time, you are very tired, you will get to sleep, fall to sleep in between. And if you would treat all these people in the regular way, you just could take a shower and go back to work. So what do we do in Rainbow Reiki with the whole body treatment? Well, we set this up, all the positions, plus extra positions if needed, in about 2 to 3 minutes. Then we start that, and then it runs on its own with chakra balancing, cleansing of the aura, and grounding for 20 minutes. And during these 20 minutes, you don't have to think about anything specific. You can do whatever you want. And you could even set this up at this in the same time for one person, several persons. They don't have to be in the same room. They could be on the other side of the planet. You could set this up for animals because it will automatically recalculate it to the anatomy of the animals. So after you have had food, dinner in the evening, you sit down with your spouse, you set up in 2 or 3 minutes a treatment for the whole family, needy friends, the cat and the dog. You activate it, and from that moment on, 20 minutes, it runs and you don't have to do anything. This is, in my understanding, a revolution, because now people can have this every day twice or thrice. And yes, there are a lot of people who say, this is not Reiki. Well, I have proof that it is, because I did scientific research with a scientist who has specialized in scientific research of psychic people and of spiritual healers, and since 2008 of Reiki practitioners. This is Professor Ignat Ignatov from Bulgaria. And we did with, I think, 60, 80 Rainbow Reiki practitioners, a lot of research, and we found out that Reiki has all the qualities that Mariana Saji, this whole body treatment, has, that it works like hell for the practitioner, so the practitioner's energy gets better, and for the client, because there the energy also gets better. So I have proof that this works with the energy Reiki, like everything I do with Rainbow Reiki. And what I guess at the moment is that the spiritual world prepares the people who walk a spiritual path for the years to come. Because astrologically seen, we have had since 2008 Pluto in Capricorn, meaning the hidden, let's say, networks of power are brought to their limits. They don't work anymore like they were. But now, in a few years, Pluto gets into Aquarius, and Aquarius has a very simple but very radical message or challenge: freedom from or freedom for. Do we want to go for dictators, a strong man, or do we want to go for more democracy and take care for the planet altogether as a global community? Or do we want to make world war and all this kind of stuff? This is a big challenge. And I think that if I just look around and just do not limit to the Reiki community, there are so many spiritual healers, so many spiritual people who started movements, who were inventing great stuff, who were inventing revolutionary methods, all within the last 2 or 3 decades. It was starting around the second half of the 90s, beginning of the 90s, something like that. And I think that the spiritual world prepares us, that we have the tools to really make a decision. Where do we want to go? And I want to contribute something. And even if it's only a drop which I can contribute, this is what I want to do. So this is in short terms. I know it's long, but the shortest I could, what I did on my path and what I did with the energy Reiki. And again, I adore the life work of Usui and of Hayashi. I think we can learn so much from these people. And Usui is no pope, and he is no Jesus Christ. He was a person. And we should understand that we are also just people, especially gifted people. And so I like to learn whatever I can about the energy Reiki and how to deal with them better. And I think this will go on.
We were just talking about that. I mean, there's a lot that, brings up thoughts with your story. We were just talking about this Pluto energy shifting into Aquarius, like, maybe 10, 20 minutes before we were coming
Oh,
on.
really?
Yeah. We were just talking.
Wow.
And the different energies that are coming in because of it, and the same exact concepts of what you're talking about, of this control or outside authority as opposed to our own, inner authority, and that development, but also in that communion with each other, with that unity, that harmony with each other, with the planet. Yeah. And how this Pluto energy is shifting it, and how I think we were talking about it yesterday too, Colleen, because Colleen and I recorded a podcast yesterday about this, about just the two of us, about all of the technological things that are happening right now, and how we also have the opportunity in this time frame, in the astrological aspects, to contribute these positive frequencies into this for, the descendants, essentially. But also bringing in that idea of all the astrological opportunities that we have, and how that works with Reiki. But it's just funny that came through in the conversation.
Great coincidence.
Just talking about it.
Wow. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I like to add that since the beginning of the coronavirus crisis, I certainly finally got it. Since then, I teach webinars, and most of them are German English, some of them just English. And 3 days ago, I started the International English Language Rainbow Reiki Teacher Program. So everybody can study with me online if they like. And I have a YouTube channel with about 500 videos, spiritual videos, where people can make their choice to support them on their path. And that's very important to me, to provide this kind of support to people.
What is the name of your YouTube channel?
Walter Lübeck.
Walter Lübeck. Okay.
Yes.
Lubeck.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So making sure, I mean, all of this will be also written in our show notes, but for those who are only listening, and then they can go right over to your YouTube channel and hear more about how you're teaching. And I also believe in the evolution of Reiki and how it is continually assisting us in our evolution to be able to even perceive or conceive of its possibilities. And I agree with you that as we continue to evolve ourselves, of course we can hear and access these higher levels of consciousness and ways of understanding possibilities as well.
Isn't that wonderful? I love that idea, that suddenly over these next 2 or 3 years, many people will unfold their light and bring it to the planet together.
I actually believe that. I was doing a journey with a client not too long ago, and we ended up going to the descendants and really connecting in with the descendants.
Wow.
And they came in and said, actually, they would call themselves the ascendants because humanity does evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those, where you're really experiencing the energy of the connection and the conversation. And so it just brought this wonderful level of trust. And also, Walter, what I hear you say, and I think for myself at 65, we were so born into that age of authority and the right ways to do things and the traditions and the expectation that we follow the rules. And yet we were really that generation, and probably many generations before us too. But I really believe we are the bridge generation to bring in this freedom to hear on our own inner truth, to hear those memories that are our soul speaking, and that Reiki energy in all of the ways that we access it deliver that. And so I'd just like to hear your perspective from that. I mean, you've been sharing it, but your perspective of having grown up in those ages of, like, do it the right way or you're doing it the wrong way, is more than anything, is you're doing it wrong. If you don't do it the way I tell you, you're doing it wrong. And watching and being really, adding and contributing to the energy of this new way of these ages of Aquarius that are coming in for that personal freedom to discover your own truth. And so that's what I really hear from your story of how you've really worked with all of your work by all the different names it's called and experiences and techniques. So can you just kind of talk a little bit about your perception of that or perspective?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Colleen. That's a very interesting topic. And I think what a coincidence that the both of you are already in that topic, Wow.
Well, it's the energy, right? That's out there.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
channeling through
it's
so many of us right now.
coming together by resonance. It's
Exactly.
quantum stuff, physics,
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
You see, the spiritual guides which support me whenever I listen to them, they started with that when I was very young. And maybe it was this reason, I'm not really sure. But another part was that my father died when I was 11. And soon after that, about 2 years later or so, I was going into the community of musicians. I did concerts. I had the life of, let's say, a semi-pro. And it was, of course, against the rules. And I tried the joints, but they didn't work for me. They did work for my girlfriend. She had one puff and she was, dropped out. I had 2 joints, nothing happened. So I just left it because it was too expensive for me and it didn't work. So why should I use it? But being in that community, using the texts, well, at that time, the Doors, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and the Flower Power movement, Woodstock, and these kind of things. This was still very present, I think, in your life too. And they helped me to jump over these limitations which were set in school and from the government and so on. And I don't think that the people, the teachers in school, or that the politicians wanted to be bad people. They thought it was the best they could deliver. But it wasn't for me, and it wasn't for many others. So when I was a student at the university, I had my own rebellious years and was going against authorities and developed a different lifestyle and so on. But from today's perspective, I think this just prepared me to being able to think outside the box later on. And today, what I think what we need for the years to come is many, many people who understand how serious the choice is we have to make. How absolutely serious it is that there is a crossroad. And at the moment, we are not past the crossroad, we are in front of it. This is the biggest challenge, in my understanding, which humanity had during the last many thousands of years. Maybe the biggest decisions from that moment on, when people started to melt or to get metal out of it. That was a big, big decision because it started technology. And now we have a big decision whether we want to go for more technology, artificial intelligence, and changing the DNA and all these kind of things, or do we want to go back to nature and work together with nature, being a part of nature? I like the Greens and like the environmentalists, but on the other hand, they want to do less harm to the environment. That's not what I want. I want to do no harm to the environment. I want to be with nature and not doing less harm to nature. We need so much spiritual tools. We need so much motivated people. And I'm praying every day that more people wake up and realize where we are and what our choice is. And there is this war going on in Ukraine. And there are so many details about that, and I don't want to go into that. I don't know whether that is really something we need. But one effect of this war is that people get more alert, that they don't believe in the government as much as they did before. And I think that's good. Not because the government is bad, but because the people need to get into a state of political mindset. They need to take responsibility for what we are doing. They could not say the government should do it. No, we the people need to do it. And prayer, meditation, Reiki, shamanism, crystal work, and all these wonderful things. In my understanding, this is what we can do to change the world. Listen to the light.
Yeah, we actually physically empower these frequencies. And, we think of the earth and the air and the fire and the water. We also have the electromagnetic fields and the frequencies and the energy fields. And life force energy fields. And so as we co-create in these fields and we empower them with not only intention, but the energy that is resonant with that intention, we physically create it, we physically establish it. As you were talking about that grounding, not just in our body, but on the earth itself. And then I believe that that assists, as we were, somewhat talking about the descendants and what we can do today to make that difference for the descendants, is that ability to establish these higher frequencies through our practices, our intentions, in all the different ways that people are doing it. And creating that unified force and energy forces that are there. And I think for myself, it's like it is the focus of my lifetime.
Yeah.
It is what I can do. And now moving into these ages and, knowing I just need to be a stability and a ground of stability. So these, the younger generations that are here right now, but also in the future, but just creating that stability for them to stand on and them to hear and to listen. And so for me, again, I use Reiki energy to help me be there, to help me
Yes,
to be
absolutely.
in it myself.
Yeah. The Reiki energy is for me like a catalyst. And whenever I feel something new is coming, I allow Reiki to fill me and to help me to open up to that. So one of the latest things I did, that I opened up to the heritage of the mother trees. Before humans were starting to melt ore to get metal, the world was covered with trees. As the Romans said, a little ape or squirrel could go from one end of Spain to the other without touching the ground because everything was covered by forest. Germany, France, Italy, England, Spain, Turkey, Greece was all covered with forest. And there were the mother trees. The mother trees are not necessarily much bigger than other trees. They are old and they have special dryads, a kind of tree angels, who make them very sensitive antenna for the spiritual rays from the stars. And the mother trees, they get it in and they distribute it to the chieftain trees. And the chieftain trees distribute it to all the other plants. And they distribute it to the animal world, including us. And when the patriarchal religions came, including but not only Christianity, they were cutting down the mother trees. Because the mother trees helped us to be a part of nature. They gave us information which makes the animals run their lives in a way that each life supports the other lives. This was also true for humans before the forests were cut down. Now, during wintertime, the angels gave me the gift to train people to find the mother trees, to activate the mother trees. So we do it. We have now about 120 people, and soon it will be much more. And they go around and they find the mother trees and they open up the gates so the dryads can get into the mother trees. And we have this flow of information again. And I know from other people who do shamanic work that they do similar things. They're setting up totem poles and do prayer rituals over there, to do a kind of earth acupuncture and so on. I love these movements. I love these ideas. This is what we need.
But I also think that there's an aspect of the technology that can help us move into these places. I do think that well, because I'm a big nature person, Walter as well, that connection, like you said, to the trees and the spiritual, it's not just a spiritual connection, it's a home connection. It is because it is our home, right? It's our home. And but I also think that uh, as we move forward, bringing these ancient ways into the technology, because the technology isn't going away, right? It is our future. And I know that there's a lot of different thoughts around that, so we don't need to go into that, but it is our future. It's here and it's not going away. And at the same time, there are issues around that, there is also things that it is allowing us to do, such as, because I very much agree with you that we are in this infancy of, and infancy is longer than just my generation, it's, but this infancy of moving out of these old systems into new systems. And one of the reasons that we've been able to be propelled into that communication with others that are like us, that are thinking like us. I mean, here we are meeting with you, who's in Germany, and we're in the Pacific Northwest of America. And, these skills that you're talking about, because we're doing some similar things where we're using the Reiki energy to teach skills that are from other modalities, that are combining these beautiful practices with people all over the world. And so many are doing that. So, so many are doing that, but we get to communicate these things. We get to talk about these things, just the idea of podcasting and what the perspectives that it's opening up for people across the globe. And, and so there's these aspects of this, as you were talking about before. I don't know if it was actually on the recording or not, but the online piece that's allowing people to not travel, to cut costs around being able to take this share this work, is a better way to say that, to share this work. That there's a piece of that I think, as we move forward, how do we use these technologies to return us to these places as well, communicate these ideas, move outside of some of these archaic patriarchal systems that need to shift as we move into the future. And so I think that I don't necessarily know if the two are mutually exclusive, at least in what kind of Reiki has guided us to do, Reiki has shown us to do, or just this energetic work, that the two can be together. And how can the technology help us to live in more communion with the planet? Because is that where the answer is? Can the technology help us to communicate these ancient ways that so many of us didn't have access to? Can it help us to shift these systems as a society into these higher frequency places together? Because we are able to talk to each other about it. We're able to see so much faster, which there's a lot to that too, that can be very overwhelming, very overstimulating. Like you said, that grounding piece that matters so much as a part of this, but that we can communicate, like you were giving the example of the war in Ukraine. Like, we know about it from more than just being able to see what's in a newspaper, or that has been able to be communicated, even through the radio. Like, the information moves so much faster that we can understand about these things. We can communicate about these things. And there's a lot to figure out. Obviously, I do think these frequencies into these places, the more and more that as a society, as a community of light bringers, can contribute into this, I think that matters so much as well. And I really love the analogy of that. If you're just up here, you can get lost, right? For those that are listening, I'm pointing to my head, but if you can bring that grounded energy into it, which is also an analogy for the technology, if you can bring that mother tree energy, if you can bring that healing into it, if you can bring Reiki energy, and all the different ways that even outside of Reiki, people are doing this work, we can bring all of that into the technology. Can that help us to move into a place where we are able to live in more in this more of this ecosystem way with the earth? Because we know at this point that the old ways of living, actually physically existing on the earth, are not sustainable. And so how do we move into a sustainable place as a system? Because all of us are trying, or not all of us, but many of us are trying to move further and further into that place in our own lives. But again, it's systemically. And I don't think that as a system necessarily, without some of these things, this communication, this education, without some of this technology, like solar technology, without a giant reduction of population on the planet, how do we do that in a sustainable way? And that is not an option, right? So it's like, so we have to think outside of the terms of the current system. And maybe somewhere in there is technology that can be a part of that, but it has to be a part of that in a very healthy way. And I think that as Colleen was saying, as we contribute the aspects of the health into it, which is wellness, which is what I think we're all trying to move towards through these modalities, through these practices, that it does contribute to that. It puts that in there. We're using it in those ways instead of just for certain ways. We're using it for us too, for all of us that are doing this spiritual work. So it's just one of those things that, that I really would, the energy and the work, and now you kind of saying too, that you're doing so much of this work online, like you're spreading this work through this technology. I really think that the two don't have to be mutually exclusive, that we can be both,
Absolutely, I agree. You see, we need the internet definitely for getting together globally. We need that as long as we don't have telepathy, which would do the same thing. At the moment, we don't have that, and I don't see it that we have it in the next 10 years. I don't know, but I don't think in the next 20 years. For this, the globalization with the internet is wonderful. See, the globalization also did one great thing. The globalization made it that it is difficult for the big nations to go finally at war.
Yes.
There would already be a war, like China wanting to claim Taiwan, if there would not the globalization bringing China down to their knees, and the rest of the world too, if they would try to claim Taiwan. Maybe they are not clear in the head and do it anyway, but I don't think so, because they are very clever people. And the same goes for many other countries which would go in a way or another to war, but they cannot because of globalization, because they have to have the goods from here, from there. And this was going on in times of First and Second World War, because at that time the countries were so secluded from others that they could wage war. They could do it. Today, it's really difficult to do it. But you see, you mentioned technology. I do research about this. At the beginning, not on purpose, but later I did on purpose, because it's so interesting. And people coming to my classes, they told me about things. Engineers, chemists, physicists. Sorry, my English is well. And so I know definitely the technology is there. It is just not accepted by the mainstream science and by mainstream politicians and governments, but it's there. I will give you one example which fascinates me. About 25 years ago, there was a big research project financed by the company Ciba-Geigy. You ever heard about Ciba-Geigy?
No.
It's a big Swiss company. They are one of the multinational companies who produce pharmaceutics. So this company financed some scientists who used electrical current to influence the fertilized eggs of fish. And what they found out was brilliant, because the fish were getting stronger, healthier. They were getting back into the original shape about 10,000 years ago. They did this with other animals. They were going back into very, very healthy, very clever forms. And then Ciba-Geigy was topping this and was putting the patterns into the safes. And the scientists had their own notes. And they published 2 books about that. I read them both. And I know one of them personally. I know it works. It's already there. There are many other things, like the technology of Wilhelm Reich, who was in the United States with the organ accumulators. But what he did in the 40s, well, there were many people who were bringing further what he did. So today we have organ accumulators which are much more powerful, much more flexible to use, and so on and so on, you know. So there are bridge builders. I'll give you one example from one guy who brought in, I think, about 200 patents for IBM. I think you know IBM.
Mhm.
The guy was Dr. Marcel Vogel. I don't know whether you heard of him. Marcel Vogel was US American. He developed, for example, the hard drive. So when he was retired, he had the money and he had the experience to do research about silicium dioxide, which even today is used mostly to do the little tiny, you know, integrated circuit, whatever stuff, things. Because he found out that if you are in a bad mood, they don't function like they should. And if you pray to them, they do function like they should. I think the Reiki people know that you can repair many electronic devices just by Reikiing them. So what he did great research about clear quartz, which is silicium dioxide.
Yeah.
And he was giving them special cuts, and he developed methods how to charge them with certain programs. There is a big teaching content he developed, and it comes from the United States. It's still available there. And this Marcel Vogel, he built a bridge between electronics and spirituality via clear quartz. This is just one example. There are so many. Like a guy who reproduced all the experiments of Tesla, and he found out so wonderful, interesting things. So it is there. We, the people, need to make our minds up. Because the government does what the people want. I know that often it's claimed it's different. No, it's not. It's not, because the people, they are the force who brings the politician into power. If the people say, we don't give you the power, the politicians go. They are replaced. We need to find out what we want, the way of the heart or what?
So true.
I want to go back to the mother tree.
Mm.
Because also that was another thing we've been talking about, is the mother tree. Just in the
Really?
last couple of, yes, absolutely. Just in the
No,
last
come
couple of
on, you're
days.
kidding.
Yeah. You know, we work with the tree of life energy with our animal Reiki.
Yeah.
And so just even days ago, we were again in a Reiki journey and in a grove with the trees and the
Oh,
mother tree and
oh,
the tree of wisdom and
enchanting.
the tree of knowledge and the different trees, and the mother tree was just there and said, oh, the mother tree.
Yeah.
So I love that we talked about resonance, but
Yes.
also a little bit about telepathy, morphic resonance. And
Wow. That's
picking
magic.
up on it.
That's magic.
So I would just love to hear you just share more about the mother tree.
Yes, yes, of course. I love to. You know, it's at the moment I'm really burning for the mother tree.
Yes, right.
You see, I was praying last year and asked the angels who are with me, I would love to go a new way, but we need to replace what we have. We need to have something which helps us to go on if this doesn't work anymore or works only to a certain extent. So we don't have the nature like it was in Lemuria. What to do? And they say, well, we provide something. And then after some preparation in wintertime came the mother trees. And they said, the mother trees is like the artificial intelligence, but at the power of 1 billion or something for the planet Earth, because the artificial intelligence will, in relatively short time, I think within 10 or 15 years, will be a kind of mastermind for the whole industry. There will be the time where you program the artificial intelligence, then the artificial intelligence helps you to program the first level intelligence, then on third level they program on their own, and then on fourth level they start to interact with other artificial intelligences who are specialized in other things and so on. And this will be progressive. And the spiritual guide said something very interesting. They said, and you need it because you are so many people. If you don't have that kind of mastermind, you will fail as a race. You can't do it. Your mind, which you rely on, is not big enough for that. But we have an alternative. So they said you could have the artificial intelligence, and the artificial intelligence will not be able to do the whole job, only a little part of it, tiny part. But for billions of years, the trees, they brought in the wisdom from the suns. And in my shamanic path, the suns are the 13 archmothers, I don't know how to pronounce that, of the universe. There are 13 different kinds of suns, and each sun is like a portal for the energy of the great goddess, which delivers another frequency. The special energy work, which is part of my Lemurian Tantra school, because these mothers, they provide us with a mixture of energies which does exactly organize what is needed to organize on a planet. But the intermediaries, the envoys, so to say, are the mother trees. They act like big antenna. And to not only receive the rays, but the spiritual emanations, you need to have a dryad, an archdryad, a dryad of high capacity, a kind of tree angel dwelling there. And then the tree can connect and create a network with the chieftain trees. They are like they're like the managers of branches. And these chieftain trees, they can then distribute the news to all the others. They are like transformers who bring down something which only the mother trees and the angels can understand, and then they transform it into something which finally even the animals can understand. And by bringing down this information, they can explain to us, not for the logical mind, but for the heart and for sixth chakra and so on, how to live together and how to share the life process of this planet and creating a paradise for everybody instead of destroying it. So they would be the mastermind of that planet. And there are plenty of trees who have the potential. Like there are many people who would make great footballers or great scientists or whatever, but you need to activate the potential. So the way I do it is just one way. There are many ways, and I think you know this already, that there are many other ways. People need to make the decision to activate a mother tree and help, because we have brought down this planet so much. So we have to take responsibility and do what we can to bring it up again. And that's one of the things we can do. We can activate the potential in a mother tree and help the mother tree to grow strong so the mother tree can go on its own. And the angels help us. And the project which I was given is just one of many. And I'm so happy that all over the world, people start to communicate with the plants again and allow the plants to teach us how to live happily together with all the others. This was a friendly planet before the humans started to melt ore. Yeah. And we can come back to that, I'm sure.
It's really, Colleen, you're muted. It's really fascinating because we co-wrote with a couple other authors the animal Reiki for the ICRT, and the symbol and the energy is called Tree of Life, animal Reiki
Oh,
energy. And we were so surprised through the process that that was the symbol, because if you're thinking about animal Reiki, you think, oh, it's going to be like a pa or kanji, or I mean, there is kanji that's a part of it. But so we asked, why is it the tree? And it was kind of something to like what you said. It's because, well, the tree is something that everything understands. The
yeah.
plants, the animals, the humans, the water. I mean, everything is connected through the trees. And the energy in the class is a lot more. It's more than just animals. It's about that connection with nature. It's about that connection with with the plants, with the waters, with all of it, and that living in communion in that ecosystem. And exactly what you're saying, you're seeing this all over the world where people are connecting into these similar concepts and
Isn't that beautiful?
have been, it's that resonance that you're seeing it. Like you said, it's like so
Yeah,
many different, and
yeah,
it's kind of a very similar idea. And then coming through the trees that this is happening. And so it's just fascinating that, it sounds, it's like these kind of big concepts that are anchoring onto the planet.
absolutely. And there are so many scientists now jumping on that train, or even producing parts of this train, like Dean Redden from the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And there are many others. There are people who were setting up this global network, of these what's the name? These generators probability generators.
Mhm.
And due to mathematics, you would have 50-50 chance of a certain thing happening. But you see that these generators, who are placed all over the earth, they start to produce something very different when there is a big crisis going on. So there are patterns who influence probabilities. And there are scientists in the MIT and other places who do research in this. So they are building bridges. We just need to make them mainstream.
Yes. I have to share my screen real quick because you talked about AI in the first part of that when you were talking about. So this is an AI generated image that I made of the
Wow.
tree of life, or the mother
Wow.
tree. There was a
Yeah.
whole long prompt in that. And when you were talking about those, the dryad and the spirits and all of that, and then the fact that it's AI generated, it
Beautiful.
just was like, oh my gosh,
Beautiful.
there it is. Oh,
We could make the AI servants when we are taking care for the mother trees. And if not, then the AI will try to rule, and that would be a disaster.
agreed.
Like science is able to create short-term miracles, but long-term disasters.
Very true.
Yeah.
Well, and when you were talking about the mother tree, for me also, we had a small farm, about 30 acres in very rural Oregon, and in the trees. And the trees here are, we have big trees. And we lived on the land with a tree who was very clear that we lived with her. She did not live on our land. And the kids grew up with her, and she would come into the house, and she was always there. And, so much of like my personal spiritual work was with her and under her, and, gaining my experiences. And kind of your description of the dryads made me really realize, because once we moved from there, maybe 3 years later, now I would say that as a dryad, she actually came to me and let me know that she had moved out of that particular tree. And not like, it wasn't sad. It wasn't like, oh, I had to leave. It was just, I have moved on, and this is I want to let you know. And it was such a fascinating experience because it was maybe 10 o'clock at night. I was already drifting off to sleep, and boom, she popped in.
Wow.
And I knew, so I drove out there because we had moved, like I say, maybe 3 years before, maybe even a little bit longer, and drove back out to where she was. And it was a very different energy. And with the people who lived there, he was a very good land manager, but didn't quite have that same awareness of the tree in who she was, in the way that she was. So anyway, that's when you were talking about it, I was thinking that's exactly, her name was Beauty. And she's probably one of the most influential, physical energies or beings in my life, and having spent so many hours. We lived there 20 years. And so spending so many hours with her. And of course we had animals and horses, and that even takes me back to some of your story as you were talking about your history, that in my history, I received Reiki because my horse went lame.
Oh,
And he actually told me that he went lame to deliver me to my power to heal. And
wow.
showed me putting hands on him. And so I knew it was Reiki, and ended up, finally through some of my own resistances, finally received Reiki, and had that same kind of an experience that you were talking about, with the current running through your arms, and like, what is this? And in earlier days, you were, 15 years before I received Reiki. So you had gone through some of it, but it was still, at the time I originally received Reiki, was still in that very strict kind of rigid rules of Reiki that I was like, this just isn't making sense for me. And like you say, that 3-minute, the 3-minute hand positions where, keep your hands in that same position. Oh, excuse me, I've got to fix my well,
The new mudra for amplifying the sixth
there's
chakra.
the new mudra for fixing the focus on my.
I love that.
That's a great.
Fixing the
Yeah, I'll
focus.
have to change it, figure out how I can do that. A new mudra for it. So anyway, it's just so fun to talk with you and hear those resonances, and how we can be across the world and
Wonderful.
have that connection that is happening, and feels like those frequencies of Reiki guiding us and showing us and helping us to get to the place where we are contributing to this evolution that is occurring right now, and co-creating right now.
Yes, we need to co-create, and I think many people are willing to do that and are already starting, like you do, like you know many other people. I do know many other people, and there are so many more we don't know, but you feel there's a change going on. Yeah, and that is something which gives me hope.
Yeah, and all different kinds of modalities too. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not just Reiki or any of these, or even just spiritual modalities. It's also happening. But I do think you're right. A lot of it is about us really waking up and recognizing that we are at choice point. And so again, I think for myself, what I can do is do what we're doing. Stay stable. As we always say, stay stable and be kind. And
yes, that's so important. And I think the networking, what you, the both of you are doing, is one of the main pillars of this whole new movement, because bringing people together and helping them to get new ideas, this is what we all need. This is to activate the potentials.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. The conversations, that's how you get, that's how you get to know people. It's how you move
Yeah.
past any barriers. It's how, like you said, you get the inspiration and the ideas and the feeling of connectedness, of more connectedness, as we are all of these people, moving around each other and these morphic resonances, but then realizing that's right, we are all connected just through even just conversations.
Yes, when I give classes, often they are international. There are people in Argentina, there are people in Chile, in United States, and in Spain, and France, and Germany, and Austria, and we hold the hands of spiritual guides, and they connect us, and we sing a song. Love just flows out of my heart it flows to you, and I feel the
Yes.
same energy like when we do this physically, and this is over 3 continents. To think, wow, what a treat that we can do that.
Agreed. Coming back to that telepathy piece.
Yes,
We are
yes,
connected, right? And it's like, we
we
just
are.
don't have the answers for why that feels the same, but it really does. It's that love. We know it's there.
Yes, and do we really need the answers, or do we just
I
need to
don't.
know how to do the work,
Some do. I just feel it, so it's all right. And then
Yeah,
many of us
yeah,
do, and then other
me too.
people, they need the answers. So, well,
I
let's
don't
go
know.
ahead.
I think I'm in the place of like, yeah, it's all in the mystery.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is. It
Yeah.
is. We can only understand a tiny, tiny, tiny little spark of what's going on. It's okay to understand that spark, but the rest, come on, it's too big to understand.
So true, right?
We're humans. You were saying earlier, like with the enlightenment piece, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, wood, carry water.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, you're
Well,
talking about your classes.
yep.
Tell us about your classes, how people get a hold of you. People will want to know that. I think we just started talking so quick. I don't think we even shared your website information or any of that. So let's go into a
Yeah,
little bit of that. Share your story.
my website is www.walterlubeck, Luebeck, .com, and there is a German part and an English language part. But in fact, nearly everything which I do as a webinar is German English. So I have the German and the English simultaneously, and I translate and I pass on English manuals, German manuals to the people. I've just started a teacher training, international teacher training in just English, because there are so many people who want to take the teacher training of Rainbow Reiki, and they are on different parts of the earth, in India and the Philippines and Southern America and so on. And so I started this with an in-depth training because I want to give the best I can. And if people like to study with me Rainbow Reiki, they can do it online. They can study the White Feather Shamanic School. We do a class about Northern mythology and the runes, for example, now. And at the end of the February, I have Rainbow Reiki first degree. I give classes about the mother tree. And there will be in summer a class that's very new about the star wolf. Star wolf is a medicine animal which accompanies me since many, many years. And he is a teacher of teachers. And he told me a few weeks before, I want to teach the teachers. So it's not about teaching a specific thing. It's about teaching, spiritual teaching. So the Star Wolf is a specialist for helping potential spiritual teachers to understand their potential, not the potential, and to unfold it. And I'm looking very much forward to this. I think this will happen in June or July or something like that. And Star Wolf said, much of this will just be that I, not me and Star Wolf, will clear the blocks, because he said I only need to teach you a little bit. Mostly, I need to remove the blocks so your energy, your field can flow freely and connect freely to your heritage. And then I need to teach you a little bit how to deal with that. But what you're doing, this is what comes from you. So there are other classes like shamanic rituals, which I do, and a class about doing spiritual work with the spiritual ancestors. Ancestor work for me is very important, and often people misunderstand ancestor work with just being your family you were born in. But it's the spiritual teachers you had, even the familiars, the spiritual animals, and so on, and connecting with them, opening up to them, and also getting rid of family karma, for example, often is delivering what people need to grow out of some really difficult stuff, which otherwise you cannot get rid of. Then there are meditation classes, for example, next weekend about a meditation to forgive and to develop gratefulness. There's a lot of things, and people can have a look at my website. For the next 3 to 5 months, there are the classes, and there is my Facebook page and Instagram, and on my YouTube channel, there are more than 400, I think close to 500 videos in German and English and Spanish about spiritual topics. Many of them are something where I just work with Reiki, the energy, and mudras to help people, for example, to clear the astrological Pluto in their birth chart, or to deal with a certain thing in their daily life in a spiritual way. So they just can make their choice. They could let the video play. They don't have to listen to the video. It just needs to fill the room with the energy where the person is. This is a new branch of the goddess radionic, which I don't know whether we have the time, but I think it's an interesting story if you want to know how to
Yeah,
I got the access to the goddess radionic. You know, the chakra energy cards, they have these, I don't know whether you can see that. You see
Yeah.
this star, yeah? This is the first development of goddess radionic. These stars, they are all different on each card. Each card has a different star. So I was invited together with Ajava Peta and William Lee Rand to the first Asian Reiki Congress to Delhi in the Ashok Hotel, big hotel. And well, we had these 3 days with hundreds of people and lots of talks and festivities and so on. And I was seeing the first all Indian rock and roll band. And I was shocked. Why? They played great music, so everything okay. But they were sitting in full lotus and playing the guitar and were singing Elvis Presley and Bill Haley and Little Richard and so on, while sitting on the floor in full lotus position with the legs. I thought, this is something you won't get anywhere in the Western world. So it was interesting. So after this, we had some days off, and we decided to take a driver. You need a driver there who knows the country, and to go to Rishikesh. And the streets outside the big cities, at least at that time, they are difficult. So we needed a whole day to go there to Rishikesh. And Rishikesh is a wonderful little town at the foot of the Himalayas. And there is a Ganga, the river Ganga, broad, I think about 150 yards, 200 yards broad, even small. Ganga becomes much bigger later on, but there it's about 150 to 200 yards. There is wide tropical beach at each side, and little piggies are playing there. I never found out whether these were young pigs or whether the race of the pigs was so small, but they were playing a lot there. And it was so peaceful. It was so inviting. I was sitting down at the beach and was meditating. And then Ganga, the river goddess, came to me. And we introduced, and she told me, well, what water was seen from a spiritual point of view. She said, water is the milk of the great goddess, of the mother of life, Mother Nature. And water circulates through all the beings. It is the element which goes highest in the air, and it goes down into the earth, way deep. And it circulates through all the beings. The water which you drink today has been consumed by the dinosaurs, has been consumed by you know, the squibs and the apes and whatever, name it. And this flow unites all the beings to one circle of life. And it transports all the information from one being to the other. And she said, and now we, the spiritual guides, have a problem because you humans, you're putting chemicals into the water. You're putting radiation into the water. You're putting the water through tubes of concrete, which removes the programs from the water. We have a really difficult time to provide you. So she said, we are looking for alternatives. And if you like, we will give you one alternative. We have other projects, but this could be your project. So I said, okay, didn't know what would come. And then she was doing a kind of download. And when we were driving back the rest of the day, I was dropped out. You know this quote, turn on, tune in, drop out. I felt like that, you know. I was dropped out. William and Ajava couldn't reach me anymore until we were in New Delhi again, and I was just going to my hotel room and falling into the bed and waking up next morning after about 11 hours of sleep. It was incredible. It was wow. So when I got home from India, the publishing house called me and said, the chakra energy cards are due to a reprint. Would you like to add anything? The angel said, you need to add the radionics for providing spiritual information for the water, for the atmosphere and everything on each of the cards, 126 different stars. I said, okay, if you say so. So because I learned that if they say you can do it, you can do it. So I was painting in one day, in one run, all these different stars. Of course, in US letter size. And this was a big build-up for the chakra energy cards, because from that moment on, you could activate these stars by just reciting the affirmation, place a vessel with water on it. It doesn't matter whether it's small or large. Within 15 minutes, it turns into like a flower essence, like an angel essence. You can use it drop-wise for creating better feng shui. If you spray it in the air, you could take it, you could give it to the animals and so on. It's like a box of home remedies, you know, for everybody, spiritual home remedies. So, and then over the years, I got about 50 different products to manage the feng shui energies of a house, to do something for the weather, to activate crystals, to produce homeopathic remedy equivalents, and so on and so on. It's a big bunch of stuff. And it all started at the River Ganga. So because the spiritual guide said we need new ways to pass on spiritual information into the circle of life. And within that time, I was seeing also many different people coming with new sets of flower essences, crystal essences, angel essences, name it, dolphin essences, whale essences. And I thought, wow, there are many other projects going on, you know.
That's a great story. I'm so glad you shared it. So are
Thank you
those,
for the opportunity.
yeah, are those cards part of what people can find on your website?
Well, no, you can get it via Amazon or major booksellers like Barnes and Noble and so on. They are constantly reprinted even after now 25 years. And of course, I have plenty of them in my own office, but you can get them in the United States or Canada
On
from
Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so speaking of that, then, so if somebody, I guess people can just type your name into Amazon and the different
Yes.
things would show up with all your books. And
Yes.
we didn't even get to all your books that you've written, the big book of Reiki symbols.
Yes.
600 pages about Reiki and the Reiki symbols. And we're going to have you back because there's so much to talk about.
I'd love to. I'd love to. You know, I love to write this book because it helped me. Each book I wrote was helping me to organize my thoughts and to really put things clearly into a certain text. And I would love to talk again with you if the both of you like. I would be happy.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so then they can find you on Amazon, and if they type in probably all your books and different cards and things like that, because I love those, the cards of the water.
Yes, and you
Can
know,
you
over
say
the
the
years,
name of that again?
it's the chakra energy cards. This
Chakra
is the
energy
German
card.
edition, but it's chakra energy cards. And over the years, there came, let's say, the fundamental of this. Like the tarot has the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life. Like the I Ching has the 5 elements, the 8 directions, and yin and yang. Now the chakra energy cards have the Sri Yantra. The Sri Yantra is in ancient Indian mandala with 9 triangles, 4 with a point up and 5 with a point down. And on each of the crossings where 2 lines cross, and many of the lines, you will find the cards. And they are placed there because they have a specific meaning. So you can do much more spiritual work with the cards. They explain the universe to you if you use them with a Sri Yantra.
Love that. Love that.
Me too.
Well, Walter, I know. Thank you so much. We've kept you such a long time. I know it's late where you are. And again, for everybody listening that can't see this visually, it's Walter Lübeck. Now, I see you spell it 2 different ways. So sometimes it's Luebeck.
Yeah, that is the English language spelling. Originally, it's L, and then there is a U with 2 dots on it, and we call it U.
Okay.
I think there is no such letter in English language, but you could spell it Luebeck. That is international spelling. It will work.
Okay.
Also from our website.
Yeah, Lubeck, Walter Lübeck.
Luebeck.
Okay, Luebeck,
Beck.
Walter Lübeck.
Right.
Because I noticed you have it separate or 2 different ways. And
That's
so
right.
then is that also true with all your Instagram and Facebook? And
Yeah.
are you on TikTok yet?
No, I'd love to, I'd love to go on TikTok, but it's even difficult for me to really understand Instagram. I have an assistant. She's really good with that.
I'm with you, right?
Whenever I try Instagram, I even don't find my page.
I know, same here. Robyn's always talking about doing the stories and reels, and she's actually really good at it. And I try, and I'm like, okay.
I understand Facebook, I understand YouTube, but the rest is.
Yeah, exactly.
I try.
I try. I
There's
know.
always so much time.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Again, for anyone listening, if you want to find Walter and check out information about his classes and all the different amazing things and books that he's written, I don't know if where you are, you have the term, he's one of the OGs, which is the originals. Definitely one of the OGs in the space. And so, just appreciate everything that you're doing as well. And it's just wonderful to get to talk with you and just feel the energy that you're contributing into the world.
I'd love to be part of your project, and I think you are doing really good work.
Thank you so much.
All
Well,
right.
and for the rest of us, Robyn, you want to?
You can find us at reikilifestyle.com.
There you
have
go.
all the socials, and it's all under Reiki Lifestyle or Robyn Benelli Reiki. So
And Colleen Benelli Reiki.
yeah. So, all right. Thank you all so much. Walter, thank you to you. And we will see you all next time. Bye now.
Bye-bye.